Welcome to ASMR Newsroom. Take a deep breath, settle into a quiet and peaceful space, and let's gently unravel the layers of misinformation, corporate greed, and political resistance that defined this year's State of the Union. Trump's speech was a storm of lies disguised as leadership. President Donald Trump stood before Congress, his voice steady, but beneath the polished delivery, his speech was a flood of deception. Over the course of 100 long minutes, Trump painted a false reality, carefully crafted to wink at the wealthy and mislead the struggling. So, let's first take a deep breath before we separate truth from illusion. During his speech, Trump boasted about the economy, calling it the strongest in history. But who is it strong for? The working class? The single parents working 2 jobs to survive? No. The reality is that wages are stagnant. Wealth inequality is at its highest in modern history, and corporate profits are soaring while millions still live paycheck to paycheck. This is not a thriving economy, at least not for many Americans. It's a rigged system designed to keep the rich in power, while everyday Americans bear the weight of rising costs. To add to this, Trump's tariff plans will raise prices even more, according to unbiased economists. And his tax plan will give the 1% about $30,000 to $60,000 extra dollars in savings a year. In contrast, the tax plan is expected to increase the tax burden on the bottom 95% of Americans. Analyses indicate that these taxpayers would experience a net tax increase, effectively transferring wealth from middle and lower income individuals to the wealthiest. Trump then spoke about healthcare. He stated that he wants to make America healthy again. But what does that mean when millions still can't afford their prescriptions? When slashing Medicaid, as the current Republican plan proposes, would force hospitals to close in rural communities? And what about when medical debt forces families into bankruptcy? He has spent years attacking the Affordable Care Act, and he has tried to gut protections for pre-existing conditions, despite his mouth often saying something to the contrary. In January 2020, for example, he tweeted, "I was the person who saved pre-existing conditions in your healthcare," a statement that fact-checkers have labeled as misleading. And then, with a measured tone, he claimed to be leading the world toward peace. But does peace mean withholding aid from Ukraine until it benefits his political ambition? Peace, to him, is cozying up to dictators and undermining allies. His foreign policy isn't about diplomacy. It's about power, control, and self-interest. It can feel overwhelming at times to take all this in. So let's pause for a moment. Breathe deeply. Let the tension in your body loosen. Know that every single thing will be all right in the long run. And you are safe right now where you are. And with that, we turn to those who refuse to let Donald Trump's spectacle go unchallenged. As Trump stood at the podium, he was met not with silence, but with defiance. Some Democrats walked out. Others held up signs condemning his attacks on Social Security, Medicaid, and basic human rights. A few even stood up and called out his lies in real time. This, of course, was characterized as rudeness by the political right, but in truth it was necessary. When faced with injustice, silence is not an option. The resistance was important and powerful. A reminder that in moments of darkness, even the smallest flame burns bright. Then, Alyssa Slotkin gave the Democratic response to Trump. Unfortunately, I would say it was a whisper when we needed a roar. Following the address, the Democratic Party had an opportunity, a chance to rise, to inspire, to push back with the strength this moment demanded. Instead, they sent Alyssa Slotkin, who has even voted to confirm certain Trump cabinet members. She's been too willing to work with Trump, at least to my liking anyway. I don't think the Democrats have figured out just yet how much the base is craving for a real pushback to the tyranny of the Trump administration. A lot of the establishment believe that the best course forward is to compromise with fascism. But fascism is not something that can be compromised with. Trump, Elon Musk, and the Republican Party needs to be taken very seriously at this crucial moment in American history. I will say that her response was polished, but it was utterly forgettable. She spoke about bipartisanship, about unity, about restoring trust. But how do you unify with a party bent on tearing apart democracy? How do you restore trust when people's wages, health care, and basic rights are being stripped away? She did not ignite a movement. She did not shake the foundation of power. She did not fight. And right now, we need fighters. Bernie Sanders also delivered a response, and his was a voice that refused to tremble. While the Democratic establishment whispered, Bernie Sanders stood tall. His response to Trump's speech was not just a rebuttal, it was a declaration of resistance. He called out Trump's lies. He condemned the billionaire class. He spoke for the people, not for donors, not for Wall Street, not for the elite, but for those working long hours just to survive. Sanders laid out a different vision, a future where healthcare is a right, where wages are livable, where climate action is urgent, and where power belongs to the people, not the privileged few. His words were not just spoken, they resonated, because this is not just about Trump. This is about the choices we make as a country. Do we accept a system where the rich grow richer while millions go hungry? Healthcare is a luxury instead of a right. The planet is sacrificed for oil profit. Do me a favor and take another deep breath. And let us remember that despite the noise, despite the deception, despite the fear, there is hope. Hope in those who refuse to stay silent. Hope in a movement that will not stop fighting. Hope in the simple, undeniable truth that a better world is possible. The resistance is growing. The lies are unraveling. And we are not alone. Thank you for joining me for tonight's ASMR Newsroom. May this moment of reflection bring you clarity, strength, and the quiet confidence to stand for what is right. And again, please remember, you are truly not alone in this. There is a growing community of us who seek truth, justice, and a better world. If you'd like to be part of this movement, please subscribe and join me. I will continue to uncover the stories that matter with calm, unwavering truth. And with that, I'd like to end with a quote from Bernie Sanders' speech tonight, one that I hope brings you a sense of comfort and quiet strength. Thanks again for joining, everyone. And here is the quote to finish off this episode. I know there are a lot of you out there who are feeling angry and frustrated at what's going on here in Washington, D.C. And some of you may feel a bit hopeless. So let me say this. At this particular moment in history, despair is not an option. Giving up is not acceptable. And none of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. Let us never forget, real change only occurs when ordinary people stand up by the millions against oppression and injustice and fight back. That is the history of the founding of our nation, when brave men and women took on the mighty invincible British Empire. It is the history of the abolitionist movement, the history of the labor movement, the history of the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the environmental movement, and the gay rights movement. Yes, I know the oligarchs are enormously powerful. I deal with them every day. I know that. Yes, they have endless amounts of money. Yes, they control our economy, and they own much of the media. They have enormous influence over our political system. But from the bottom of my heart, I am convinced that they can be beaten if we stand together and not let them divide us up by the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our religion, or the language we speak, or our sexual orientation. If we bring our people together around an agenda that works for the many and not just a few, there is nothing in the world that can stop us. We can win. We will win. Let us go forward together